The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
As a former New Hampshire state representative who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in 1963, he currently serves on the New Hampshire Commission for Human Rights. He's a product of Birmingham, Alabama, where at one time he had to guess how many jelly beans were in a fruit jar just to be able to vote.
We've come a long way, but we're not there yet.
Together we will explore the visible laws, invisible laws, and the structures above and beneath our human surface that keep us reaching for the stars. It is his goal to work with you in putting Nashua back on top, to be voted the #1 city in the nation again.
We are in a crisis situation, and that's what we're going to talk about.
I'm Harvey Keye. Welcome to Nashua Strong.
Hello, Nashua, New Hampshire. Thank you for allowing us to come into this beautiful home of yours, that is 90,000 of you, and say hello. I want to wish you a beautiful spring, sunny. I guess this is a spring day. Yeah? I used to watch didn't watch it often, but there was a guy on television who says, "Oh, what a wonderful neighborhood this is." And I think all of us can remember if you're at least 20 years old. Then there was a guy I heard that says, "Oh, what a wonderful world it is." That was Satchmo. And I just want to, before we get started with these wonderful guests from Holderness School, is thank Dick and Dan and the staff that you can't see for taking us into your home and around the world, particularly here in Nashua with 90,000 people, to talk about what you are doing. This show is about the strength of Nashua, the state of New Hampshire, and our country. All positive stuff. We don't talk about religion, race, sex, politics. We almost got into politics because it is on the edge of our memory that happens every day and sometimes not so good. So we don't get into that. But I want to thank you for coming to share with us, I believe, what I've heard from your mentor and I guess founder and CEO, and he would appreciate this. His name is Steve Davis. Yeah. And he played football with Penn State, and he played football under Joe Paterno. And one of Joe's rules was, if you late for practice, you do 50 push-ups and 50 runs around the ring. Whatever it was strict, strict, strict. I've had the opportunity to visit your school called Holderness, and I am so impressed with the fact that your school has an average of 12 to 15 kids in a classroom, which means if you don't do your homework, you're going to be spotted. Right on. So I'm going to ask you a few questions because this is your show. You're going to be on YouTube, which goes around the world, and you're going to be on Channel 96, which goes into the homes of about 100,000 people here in Nashua. I want to always illuminate and find reasons to thank our fantastic mayor, Jim Donches. And the school that I left, which is called Revere University, sister, who is now the president. And she asked me just recently, I had her on my show, and she asked me, "Harvey, what is our motto?" Well, I graduated from the school in the 70s. I can't remember. And she told me in Latin. I don't speak Latin. She then said, "Harvey, don't you forget this. It's called Upward and Better." I want to leave that with you. It's called Upward and Better for all of us. If we go upward and better from here on out, as far as we can go, our humanity will be better to humanity. Now, I don't need to elucidate on that. You know what our humanity today is doing to our humanity in around the world. And we won't touch that at all. So, let me get right into this, saying to you, Yolanda, where were you born?
I was born in DeLand, Florida.
When? I know, okay. I when. That might give you your age. I don't want to know that. But how is it you got to New Hampshire, Nashua?
Education. I came up to this area in Seabrook, New Hampshire, and as I was working a part-time job, I accepted a scholarship to University of Lowell at that time. Now it's UMass Lowell. Yeah. And it ended up in music and going into education, and came, after I graduated from there, I came to New Hampshire to teach.
So you're here?
Yes.
At least 25 years, because you worked with my daughter at St. Paul's.
Yes.
Now, Kristin, you just told me you came from, what part of Massachusetts you come from?
I grew up in Needham, Massachusetts.
Needham? Mm-hmm. Needham?
That's Metro West, one of the western suburbs of Boston.
Is that near Newton?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right next to Newton.
And what brought you to New Hampshire?
Well, I married my husband way back 30 plus years ago. And
was he from here?
He was from New Hampshire.
He came down and dragged you up here?
Basically, we took a little detour. We lived and taught in California for a while, and then came back to be closer to our families and settled in New Hampshire.
Right now you're at Holderness.
Right.
And you've been there for 25 years?
24 years,
24 years. And you're at some university?
Well, I'm at a school down in Massachusetts.
Okay. Now that we know where you came from, what brought you up here? You told me your husband did it, and you told me a job. And I have another question for you. Where did you go to school, Kristin?
I went to high school at the Needham Public High School.
College?
And I went to college at Middlebury College in Vermont.
One of the finest. It's a junior Ivy League. I think that's what they say. How about you, Yolanda?
I did my first master's at UMass Lowell in music, and I also attended RIV for my second master's in education.
Oh my God.
And now I'm completing my doctorate of education at RIV University.
What is a president's name?
Marie.
Pauly. Her name is Dr. Pauly.
Yes.
Reverend Dr. Pauly.
Yes.
One of the finest persons you'll ever meet.
I agree.
When you see her, you say, her disciple, Harvey, says,
okay.
Okay. Now, what is the first job? Just getting a little feel for where you got your beginnings to share with so many people. High school, college. You told us that. I believe what I was looking for was your first job out of high school and your first job out of college. Sort of give us a feel of where your grit, that's what I'm looking for, is. Tell me.
Mine was, even before I left high school, I would babysit and always help the children with their homework. My mom was a preschool teacher, so she always would get me to help her with her lesson plan. She's like, what ideas would you have? So I kept doing that, and then I had a job at a grocery store just to raise money to go to college. So out of high school, only 3 months, and then I was in college.
Okay.
So at college, I tutored, and I helped at the interdisciplinary social science building. So
isn't that nice?
A college work study job.
Congratulations. Let me just ask you and tell you also, your name, I got an education from this lady. I was sending her an email that says K. Fischer at Holderness at gmail.com. And it kept coming back. Now, I'm not, I'm not totally illiterate in this new stuff. But man, I said, something's wrong with her email. So I called Steve. I said, Steve, this is right? And he said, yeah, it's right. Well, he's on the same level I am. So I finally got a chance to speak with this lady, and she says, well, there's a .org in the Gmail scheme of things. And folks, that's what it is. If you don't know, get it from Kristin. There is a .org, not just .com, in the Gmail scheme of things. They call it an algorithm, something like that. That's all right. Don't bother.
Yeah.
Don't bother. I have a couple more questions, then I'm going to let you fire away. Who, in your mind, when you were young, motivated you to go, as Sister Polly would say, higher and better?
My motivator and inspiration was my mother. She started out as a bathroom cleaner for a preschool that they started in my town, DeLand, Florida. And she ended up being one of their top teachers because she told them, any way that I can be involved in educating our children in our neighborhoods, she wanted to be involved. So it was at our church. She volunteered to clean the restrooms, and before long, she was teaching with me on her back as a baby. Because
wow. That's not only inspirational and motivational, that's interjectional. Almost, okay? How about you, Kristin?
I would say my parents,
Yeah?
too. And I grew up in the 70s and early 80s. I graduated from high school in 1981. And my parents told me that I could do anything I wanted to do.
Isn't that a help?
They weren't limiting me at all.
Yeah.
And they also taught me about responsibility and hard work. And so those two things, I think.
Now, folks around the world, and right here in Nashua, especially the state of New Hampshire, what does diversity mean? Explain DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is that one of the titles you guys wear? One of the hats you wear? That's some of your preachings?
Yeah, it's not a specific hat I wear, but I think it's a general hat that all of us at Holderness School wear. And it's an acronym, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've added recently a B for belonging, because we want all of our students and our community members to feel that they have a home at our school.
How do you do that?
That's an excellent question. We want to value everybody's contributions. We want to value everybody's stories. We want to support our students as well as our adults in the community. And, you know, that's the basis.
Is that a communicado blurb that you use to get people to open up and listen? Is that a way that you use to get people to share and listen and put their egos aside? How do you do that, Yolanda?
Well, the acronym in itself, diversity, equity, and inclusion, opens up the conversation for everyone, saying that your opinion, what you are and what you have to offer is inclusive.
Is that comparable to a triage?
I would say no. What do you think?
I don't think so. You mentioned speaking and listening. Yeah. And I think that's really important, that everybody should have the opportunity to speak, and everybody has the responsibility to listen.
And if you all do that, let's say, if you, Yolanda, and I had this conversation, and I threw away my egotistical, narcissistic attitude, then maybe we could merge. Is that something you use, merging?
I haven't used that word in particular, but I think the concept is
You
definitely.
think it's all right?
Yes,
You think Steve
absolutely.
might accept it?
Yes.
I think Steve would accept it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I think what happens in my years of floating around, we don't know how to listen. We don't care to listen because I become so important. And what you say is secondary or tertiary or even further, quaternary. I don't have to listen to you because I am, my car is bigger, my salary is bigger, I live in a big house, and I may not even have a job, but you could see what the extraneous stuff looks like, and you could have your own perception. But in my mind, I wanted to show you how big I am by not listening. How do you break that down? How do you get them to listen?
Well, I think sometimes for our adult community, we insist and we make people do some professional development that forces them to listen and forces people to be a little bit uncomfortable with the understanding that we're all learners. So it's an easier thing to do with students and a slightly harder thing to do with adults, but necessary for both.
That's great. I got that answer, but I remember in one of the schools I attended, it was a management school. And the definition of management was this professor took a spool of thread out of his pocket, and he took the end of the thread and he pulled it across the desk, and the whole spool unrolled. They followed. In most cases, we are pushing the spool, and the thread buckles up. So when you are having sessions at the Holderness School, how many schools are involved in this business that you guys are having this conference?
The job fair.
Yeah.
We have 14 schools that will
Around
attend
the
job
country
fair.
or around
Just in northern New England, just
Maine, New
Vermont,
Hampshire,
Maine, and New
Vermont?
Hampshire. Yeah.
Congratulations on having the summit in this part of the world. But I think what we're learning to do, what is the impact of diversity in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont in your mind?
I think that it's bringing people together to have a conversation. Instead of having the conversation just between our ears, in our head, and not hearing anyone else. It's getting us to a table or getting us into a space so that we can listen to others. And in listening to others, it gives us more information to think about.
What impact do you think this summit that you have virtually is going to have on Nashua, New Hampshire?
What I hope is that there will be an impact on Nashua and the rest of New Hampshire in that we will entice a different group of people to come to our state and to put down some roots possibly and to contribute to our state and our schools. And
Say that again, the first part. The first part. You're going to admit or invite?
we hope to attract people to come to our state.
To teach school?
To teach at an
At
independent
Holderness?
school, possibly at Holderness or possibly at one of the other schools that
Why would a
are
person of color
participating.
even come to here, this school, this state?
This is a different environment. What drew me here from Florida was the fact that the educational systems here were top quality, and I wanted that education as well.
How could you measure top quality at that age?
Because I had a mom
Oh,
looking
boy,
into
that's what I
all
wanted
of
to
that.
hear.
She loved looking at the whole country. She wanted me to know more than just Florida or just my community. She wanted to open my mind and my life, my eyes, and possibly her grandchildren to something greater than what she knew.
Yeah.
And she read a lot of books. So she would read about the mountains and read about foliage and read about, and in that reading, she wanted us to go out. So she, instead of saying, no, stay close to me, she pushed us out to discover more. What else is there?
Listen, you hit on something that really brought me, well, I came to this state for a different reason. But when I got to this state, they embraced me. And I never saw myself as different from anybody. Now, I got this from my mother, who said to me, if they can do it, so can you. And I was like 6 years old. And I remember that. If they can do it, so can you. And you have hands like a doctor. I didn't know what that meant then. That's why I majored in pre-med. Because in our world, in this country today, the person or that persons between God and the rest of us is a doctor. Most of us think that way. They're top of the mark. They got the biggest house, they got the biggest car, they got the most money, and they save our lives. So I got the feeling from that instant that I was no better and no worse, but equal to all, and if they could do it, I could do it. And Sister Polly at Riviera University supports that.
Yes, she does.
Upward and better, and you are no better, no worse than anybody. I hope that's part of your diversity introduction to all of the people that are coming here virtually, not that way, but how some of that stuff that we talk about here hopefully will seep into the minds and hearts of people around the world that all of us are great human beings.
Yes.
We just have to dig down deep and find it. And all of us have a genius. I'm part of Einstein because I'm part of the universal intelligence. So don't tell me I don't have a genius, I just haven't found it yet. So, you know, I'm hoping that your, that acronym, DEI, shouts from the highest mountains to people around this state, this country, and around the world that New Hampshire is one of the most beautiful places to come because we will embrace you, whether you like it or not. Maybe, I'm not sure. What else can I ask you guys? You've explained to me and to our audience much of what I think is the core of your existence. The reason you're inviting people here is to help increase diversity. Yes. And diversity has a definite meaning. Some different, but we're stronger when we have a diverse community.
Yes.
We're stronger when we have a diverse state.
Yes.
We're stronger when we have a diverse country.
Yes.
We are not strong in atrocity. I know I didn't say that exactly right, but you know what I mean. One man rule. We're not going to be like, hopefully, Mussolini and Hitler, because we're going to have a diverse ruling. We're going to have a lot of people in the mix and helping make decisions and listen sometimes, and sometimes they don't. So what is it that you can say about the schools that are involved in this effort, Kristin?
Yes, thank you. So we've invited independent schools to this hiring fair. And like I said, there are 14 who've signed on to participate in the day. And I think you can distinguish independent schools from public schools in two ways. And one of those ways is that independent schools have freedom and flexibility. Since we don't get funding from local, state, or federal government, we're not bound by the same policies that public schools are. And that shows up in the curriculum and in the way we teach and in the way we hire. When I hire a teacher, I don't need to find somebody who has a certification, a teaching certification. And teaching certifications are very valuable. I don't want to suggest that they're not, but it just gives me a wider access to different kinds of
How
people.
do you choose them if they don't have certification?
We have interviewing groups, and we ask people to teach a model lesson when they're going through their interview process. So we get a variety of people to speak to our candidates, and we make a judgment. And I'm hoping that more often than not, our judgments are good.
How long have you guys been in business?
Holderness School?
School, yeah.
Since 1879.
I think you've been doing some things right.
Yes.
1879, that's a few hundred years, I believe, isn't it? At any rate, I think that's fantastic. I can't tell you how much I think you mean to us and what we mean to you, because that's a two-way street. I think you're on the ground doing some street fighting. You know, you got to do that. And you can't do this, and I don't say you can't. There's no word. I don't use can't. I took that out of my vocabulary a long time ago. When you find difficulties, you find opportunities.
Opportunity.
So when you find difficulties, you find opportunity. That's applicable to all of us. When your husband, I don't know where he is, find difficulties, I find an opportunity. When your husband finds a difficulty or your friend finds a difficulty, I find an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I don't think opportunities have any limits. Opportunities don't have any finish lines.
Yeah.
Like Steve Davis used to have finish lines at Penn State under Joe Paterno. It was unlimited, and our imagination is unlimited. We have the capabilities of making, everything you see in America came from somebody's mentality. So let's say 13.5 billion years ago, this planet was born, according to some people. And since that time, we have about 8 million species. We've identified about 150 species, and we happen to be top of the food chain. What else can you say about that except congratulations? You guys are doing it. Thank you so much for bringing this huge amount of information. And information is powerful, they say.
Yes.
I think Nashua is going to be better off. Hopefully the people who are watching will take a look at the advertisement, look at our show, and get involved. Let me thank you so much for being so open and real with me and our audience around the world. Folks, come to Holderness.
Yeah.
Get a job. Folks who can't get and if you go to the Christian school, you don't have to have a certificate. You can just be smart. You got to be smart. You won't get the job. But here's some opportunities where a lot of people are saying, oh, I can't do that. They won't let me do this. They want to take, allow, and tolerate into your vocabulary. If you allow it, it will happen. If you tolerate it, it will happen. If you stop it, it will stop. Have a good day, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Folks,
Thank you.
and again, to Dick and Dan, I appreciate you so much for what you do for us and how you're going to send this message to how many people in the world? 7.5 billion. Have a nice day, and thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come to your living rooms and your health spas or wherever you are to get this great message. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.